Welcome to Free Response Questions. In this lecture, we're going to first understand how free response questions usually show up on the AP Computer Science test and what significance they have. And then we're going to be looking at some guidelines for approaching free response questions. So let's start off by understanding what their format is on the AP Computer Science test. So with the free response questions, you're going to have 4 free response questions on the AP Computer Science test. Now, these questions will have multiple parts, A, B, and C usually. And you have 1 hour and 45 minutes to complete these questions. So if you can recall, multiple choice, there are 40 questions to be completed in 1 hour and 45 minutes. In 1 hour and 15 minutes. So with the free response questions, you get an additional 30 minutes. And you only have to do 4 questions. But keep in mind, you actually have to write code. So what happens in the free response questions is that you don't type up code or anything. You write code on paper. And there are 4 questions, and these questions may consist of multiple parts. And it has a 50% weightage in your overall score. So the multiple choice and the free response questions each have an equal weightage in determining what your final score is on the AP Computer Science test. And now, personally, according to me, the free response section is actually the easier section. Through personal experience and through what I've heard from other people, free response section you usually get done with very quickly and you have a lot of time to check. With other things like the multiple choice, usually you usually have 40 questions to do in 1 hour and 15 minutes, and usually you can't spend too much time on the questions and the free response questions that you spend your time in. Although when you first start doing them, the free response questions seem hard, as you practice they start to become second nature and you start to find trends in what type of questions come up on the test. So now let's quickly look at some guidelines for approaching these free response questions, because when you first look at a free response question, you're immediately kind of worried about whether you're going to be able to do it, how hard it is. But once you kind of calm yourself down and look at it logically, you start to get a better grasp of it, and this will lead to better results. So now, just like we do for multiple choice, the most important thing for free response questions is logic. And you need to figure out the logic of the problem first. That's the most important thing of the entire free response question. You need to understand the logic. You need to design a solution. So you might be prompted to do anything. You might be prompted to, you'll probably be prompted to make a method or something like that. You need to understand exactly how that method's going to work and what's going to be in that method. So before you even start writing a single line of code, the first thing you need to do is you need to design the solution and figure out the logic. So make sure you know everything you're doing. And as you're designing the solution and figuring out the logic, make sure that you address the objective. So each method or whatever you're doing or whatever code you're writing, that code will have a purpose or an objective. You need to make sure that you are specifically addressing that objective, because that can cause you to lose points. And each free response question is worth 9 points. So when you're writing an entire method of code, you might miss a few points, but you can still get some points. So it's not an all or nothing type question like multiple choice. It's out of 9 and you can get 8.5, 8, 7, 6, anything like that. So the important thing with what happens with free response questions is, as you may know, that each question has multiple parts. 2 has A, 2A, 2B, 2B, 2C. So all of these 2A, 2B, and 2C, each letter might require you to write a method. So for 2A, you would write one method. For 2B, you would write another method. And for 2C, you would write a third method. And then all 3 of these methods could be part of a specific class, and the methods could be related to each other. That's usually the format that these free response questions take. And there is no grid world free response question. So as you look at practice tests, keep in mind that when you see the grid world case study, ignore it, because that's something that you will not be seeing on the AP Computer Science test starting 2015. So now, just to recap, you want to understand the objectives, or you want to understand what the objective of this program is. You want to figure out the logic. Then you want to write code in an efficient manner and do it just like you would when you're typing up your code. Don't forget semicolons. And don't forget to, declare variables and things like that. Make sure you do everything, and everything will be fine. And now when you do some practice questions, a lot of the practice questions, they also link you to the solution. You can see some solutions that kids have written themselves. So you can kind of understand how it works and think of it logically. And this, for the free response questions, you usually don't have a trouble with time. So take your time and think out something before you do it. But when you practice, you can look at different things, different examples where you can see what students put and what grade they got. And even if you're forgetting something or missing something or you don't know how to do it, make sure you make it clear what type of logic you're using. Because even if you don't use the right syntax, as long as you have the right logic behind it, you can get the majority of the points. And then one important thing is, just as when you type code where you indent and put braces, make sure you do all of that, because that all counts when your question is being graded. So make sure you indent for the body of the method and things like that. So overall, the free response questions are the easier section of the test, and although they might seem hard when you start preparing for them, as you practice them more and more, they become easier and easier. So it's important to make sure you put in your full efforts into preparing for them, and practice is the most important thing. So first, think logically and decide what you're going to do, then write the code. Make sure you do everything in a structured manner.